Hi everyone, welcome back. Carrying on with energy today, looking at the second part of our renewable and non-renewable topic. So we're going to look at renewable energy and what it is, the types of renewable energy that humans are able to harness, how that energy is stored and transferred in those different types of resources, and the pros and cons of each. So grab some paper, grab some pens, and follow along with me. Renewable means that something can be used again or it will be replaced. I always remember this when I look at the term renewable, I see the word new, and I know that new means there's something always new available. So that ties us in with the term infinite. We had finite means it will run out and infinite means it won't. So with renewable sources, you're using them as fast as they are being replaced. We also need to just note down our energy transfers on our energy stores when we start talking about how they work in each resource. If you can't remember what these stores and transfers are all about, go back and watch the last video where I go through them one by one. For now, we're just going to leave these here, so when we start talking through energy transfers in these resources, we've got them for reference. Now, wind power is generated by those big turbines that you've probably seen out and about when you're driving. And let's have a look through the transfers in this one. So you start off with the mechanical transfer of energy into the kinetic store of the fan. So the wind is blowing, moving things moving things mechanically, and then to make that turbine spin, you need to sort of increase or fill up that kinetic movement store. So you've got wind, blows turbine, turbine spins, and that's going to transfer energy electrically through past the dynamo and into either a chemical store in a battery or to the next to your home. So then you can draw on that chemical store in your home or wherever the turbine's set up to power whatever it is that you need. In terms of pros and cons for this type of resource, the pros are mainly that there's no pollution, so you're not giving up any CO2. There's no long-lasting damage to the environment, and because they can be taken down when they're not needed. On the other hand, they're not very reliable because they're like big windmills. They only run on days where it's windy. Places like the UK where it's quite blustery usually, there's not much of an issue, but when there's no wind you generate no electricity. So that's wind power. Let's have a look at another one. Our next renewable energy resource is solar power. You've probably seen solar panels before, you might even have some on your roof of your house. So let's have a look at the energy stores and transfers in solar power. So you start off with the energy that's coming from the sun. It's that light energy that we're interested in here. So that is transferred by radiation, so that's your light and your sound, to the solar panels, and then that will fill up the chemical store inside the battery in the solar panel. So that chemical store can then be called upon to power devices. So if you've got a small portable solar charger, you'll have the light transferring energy by radiation into the chemical store inside the battery that's built in, and then you can use that chemical store to transfer electrical energy into your phone or whatever device, your speakers that you're using that solar charger / power bank. Let's have a look at the pros and cons then. In terms of pros, we've got, again, with wind power, no pollution. And in places where there's a lot of sun, these are really, really reliable. Not so much in the UK though. They are being used more than ever before. As technology gets better, the solar panels are actually able to work in sort of slightly cloudy conditions, because some of that energy from the sun is still transferring through the clouds. In terms of drawbacks, making solar panels takes a lot of energy. There's lots of rare metals and glass and things. Rare metals need to be mined, and you need to make glass using a lot of heat, so energy to make them is quite high, so you have to use them for a long time before they sort of make back that energy. And as I said, in less sunny places, they're not very reliable. That's solar power. Let's have a look at the next one. Geothermal energy next. Remember geo, if you think of geography, that's to do with the earth, and thermal is heat, so it's using hot rocks. So you'd have a geothermal plant on the surface, is my best drawing, and then you'd have your geothermal plant on top of an area with lots of volcanic activity, or there is a sort of a pocket of magma or hot rock near the surface. And what you do is you'd use those hot rocks to heat water like you would in a thermal power plant that we looked at in the last video. So rather than using fuel like coal or wood to heat the water and turn it into steam, you would use the hot rocks that you have in the earth naturally to heat that steam instead. Let's have a look at these stores and transfers in this one then. So we're starting off with the thermal energy store that's in those hot rocks under the earth. That's going to transfer energy by heating to fill up that thermal store in the water in the pipes. That thermal store is going to transfer mechanically as it moves the turbine to fill up its kinetic store. And then that electricity will transfer electrically to a substation in your home or to storage inside a battery. Let's have a look at the pros and cons of this one then. The main benefit of this type is that these hot rocks are going to stay hot, so they're not going to cool down in our lifetimes, so this is a very, very reliable source of energy. So that has a small impact on the earth overall, because all you need to do is build a power station and then you're using that energy from the earth instead of fuel. The downside is you can only have a geothermal power plant where you have geothermal activity, you have those hot rocks. That's geothermal. Let's look at the next one. In hydroelectric resources, you're using the power of a dam and the power of gravity and harnessing from the good of mankind to generate electricity. So you'd have a valley that had a river running through it. You would put a great big dam there, so a big wall to stop that water. So the water behind the dam will be much higher because it's being trapped than the water down in the valley. You'd have a river in the valley, and then in the dam you'd have a load of turbines built in, and when you let water through the dam, because gravity is going to pull it out, it's going to spin those turbines as it goes through the dam. So let's have a look at the transfers and stores in this one. We first have our gravitational potential store in this water that's trapped behind the dam. When that's let through the dam and into the turbines, it's going to transfer energy mechanically and fill up that kinetic store so the turbine blade can spin. That spinning turbine blade will then power the generator, same as in our thermal energy station, and that will transfer electrically either to a chemical store in a battery or somewhere that they're putting the power away for another day, or it will go to the home or whatever it is going to be powering. Right, pros and cons time. Few pros this time. It's really reliable source of energy because gravity is what powers it, and gravity is not going to turn off anytime soon. You can always be generating electricity as long as your dam's there. It also is variable, so if you need more power because everyone's turning on their kettles in the middle of EastEnders to make a cup of tea, you can allow more water through to spin those turbines faster or turn more turbines on at once, compared to when you have a low time, so like at night when we're all in bed. The downside then, putting in a hydroelectric dam is a huge job, and it requires the destruction of quite a lot of habitat, and it will change the course of a river because you're building a great big dam. You're making basically an artificial lake behind it where there might have not been a lake before, so it's got big environmental impacts when it's being built. That's hydroelectric. On to the next one. With Wavepower, you have a series of turbines that you put out in areas with high, where the tide's coming in, where you get waves. What happens is you have this bit that sticks up above the waves with a light on it so boats and things can see where they are, and then underneath the water you have spinning turbines. There's lots of different designs for these, but they all use the same stores and transfers, so let's have a look at those next. So we are starting off with the kinetic store in the waves as they're moving. That's transferring energy mechanically. So remember, it's moving to the kinetic store in those spinning turbines. As those turbines spin, it's going to be transferring energy electrically to the chemical store in a battery or to your homes. Pros and cons of this one as well. In this one with Wavepower, you have no pollution generated as it runs. But the downside are it does disturb wildlife when they're being put in and when they're running, and also they're quite unreliable. If you have no wind and no waves, you have no electricity generated. And on to our last energy resource. If I've still got your attention, you're still indeed watching this video. Tidal Power works a lot like hydroelectric power. You have a barrage, which is just like a dam, but you build it where you have tide coming in and going out. So often in estuaries, there is a big barrage put in where I grew up actually, and I'll try and put a picture in as I'm talking about it. Underneath the surface though, where we have these sort of grooves that the water moves through, you have a series of turbines lined up just like in a dam, and you have water that gets trapped behind at high tide. So high tide, water comes in, then they can trap that water behind the barrage, and then when the tide goes out and you get a difference in water levels, they can let that water rush back through and spin those turbines to generate electricity. So you have water trapped, water moves through, spins those turbines, electricity generated. So let's have a look at those energy transfers and stores again. Right, this time, just like with a dam, we have the gravitational potential store of that water that's trapped behind the barrage. Then that gets released and it mechanically movement transfers energy into that kinetic store in the turbine so it can spin. Turbine will spin and that will electrically transfer energy into that chemical store in that battery again, or directly to the device that it's powering if it's smaller. I need a smaller turbine, not a smaller device. You put the energy through it and blow it up. Right, final pros and cons then. This type of energy is really, really reliable because the tides come and go whether we like it or not, so they always have the ability to trap that water and make the turbines go every day. Again, you get no pollution. However, the drawbacks are when you're putting in this barrage, just like putting in a dam, it does create quite a lot of disturbance to wildlife and destroy habitat. And if the turbines aren't secured, they can unfortunately harm wildlife if they pass through. And that, everyone, is that. So make sure you have written down the types of renewable energy stores, their transfers and their stores, and the pros and cons of each, because that's what you've got to go in and learn. Then check out the Google quiz that I'll link in the Google Classroom for you to have a go at, and then I will come back and meet you next time. So have a good rest of your day. Make sure you check back soon for more content, and I will see you very soon.